Hey guys, Dark Humility here. Today I'm going to react to the PTR 3.2 patch notes released on the Blizzard website as of yesterday. Now, I have not looked at anyone else's reactions to this. I have, however, read through them all already, so I already have knowledge of what is in here. But I'm going to give you guys my thoughts and my reactions to what they have released. Now, I will say that I'd say it's like overall my mix of reactions to this is some things are needed, some things are very, very fair. There's also some bug fixes that I pretty much knew were going to happen. And then some things, or even just the sheer deluge of changes in some cases, may be an overreaction. And that's basically like my overall thoughts, but to everything all put together. But let's kind of go into it here. So, they kind of tell you up here when the PTR is going to happen. You've got, of course, the characters they're going to give you on the PTR and what things they're looking to test in general. Now, the first change we see here that Warlocks can now equip a two-handed weapon in one hand if the other hand is using a book. So this change is straight from Mr. Llama SC. I'm going to call him out here. He has been pushing this hard. There are other people that have been pushing it as well. So I know why they're making this change. Personally, I'm not really sure this is necessary. I get they don't want Spirit Shield to be overall super dominant in a lot of scenarios. I don't know, my personal way to fix that is just put more good stats on more shields. Not necessarily to nerf Spirit or make it not exist, but that's just my personal thoughts. I thematically a Warlock should be able to levitate. I mean, they levitate their weapon, right? So they're not using physical strength to hold it. So it doesn't matter how many hands the weapon should require to use. Now you could argue that only through the book's power should they be able to do this. Well, maybe, but I don't even know if it's really necessary. But either way, I would just make the books better, right? That's what I would do. However, I think this is not terrible overall. It's fine. It's whatever. It's not like a super crazy thing. Alright, max demon count now requires base skill point investment to increase its value. Wow, that's a pretty big nerf. So if you want 3 demons out simultaneously, it means you gotta max out this skill. Soft points will not cut it. Personally, I don't think this is very needed. Not really. And all this is going to mean is in the end game, you're going to have a lot less points for a lot less builds if you do want to take advantage of those extra demons. But maybe what they're trying to do here is they're trying to get it to where you have to... they want a demon-centric build to be viable, something where you truly have to max invest in the demon tree itself. To get value of it, and they don't want every single build in the game to use 3 demons. So I kind of understand that, maybe build diversification, but otherwise, I don't really know how necessary that is. Attack speed bonuses granted by the skill are capped to 50%. Summon Goatman, that's fine, that's fine. Blood Oath, damage transfer stat capped at 50%. I agree with that. I think that's a good change. I mean, this is also an expected change. Let's be honest. The damage absorb, damage mitigation capability of Blood Oath was insane, particularly as you exceeded 50%. So getting to 50% is fine. Of course, I don't know what this looks like in practice. Does this mean you need 50 skill points in the demon tree to get it to 50%? Or does it mean that with a level 20 Blood Oath, you hit 50% and it no longer increases? I do think that it's fine that it caps at 50%, but also it maybe shouldn't be too hard to get that damage mitigation as well, because it really is a core part of the character's survivability. So maybe a bit much, I don't know. Blood Boil having increased ranges at higher levels. Yeah, this is good. This is good. It also makes Blood Boil more viable at different stages in the game, giving it a bit more obvious range too once you get it to a higher level. That's good. This skill is a little clunky because of this, so they're improving it. At least that's my understanding. Consume. Making it to where game difficulty matters when consuming a bound demon. Okay, yeah, that's a good fix. Now this next change is kind of interesting. So, bind demon, they're requiring base skill point investment, kind of like with demonic mastery, in order to bind certain ranks of demons. So if you want to bind Hephaestus still or Lister, you will need 20 hard points into this. Once again, I really think they're trying to make this plus a demonic mastery change really makes me think they really want a demon-focused Warlock to truly be a thing, and not for every build imaginable to use maximum demon count and not to use the bind demon skill. So they really want you, and obviously if you have a really strong bound demon, that itself can clear very effectively. So they're really trying to make the summon demon build really good, and it is really good as it is, so those are all very good things. And then, of course, synergy for chance. So they're also making it a little bit harder to bind the demon itself, it seems. I noticed I think later, farther down here, there's something about that as well. Yeah, fix the bind demon to not roll a bind chance every 2 frames. Now checks to bind on the 24th frame. So, yeah, I could have a lot more trial and error just trying to bind the demon. You gotta click the button a few more times, I guess. I'm not even sure why they'd bother with that, honestly. It's probably just gonna make it more annoying, but for the vast majority of players, but okay, why not? So now increases the chance to bind demon and varies by type. Okay. Alright, so missing health from the demon doesn't necessarily grant an increased chance anymore, or at least not as much. Introduced max health cap, which varies by each demon. Well, so much for infinite health. I suppose they should actually be mortal now. That's a good change. Cursed affix, chance to cast amplified damage skill reduced to 5% from 75%. Wow, totally gutting Cursed, making it super unreliable at amplifying monsters, which is the negative 100% to enemy physical res. That's kind of crazy, actually. That is a gutting. Almost makes Curse not even really worth it anymore. Okay. Like, I don't even know why I'd bother to get a Cursed affix on a demon if that's the case. Mana cost reduced to 9 per second. Okay. And removed Conviction Aura, Holy Fire Aura, Holy Lightning Aura, Holy Shock, I'm assuming that's what they mean there. Blessed Aim Aura and Might Aura from the possible pool. And now, if they do roll on your bound demon, they replace with Fanaticism, Vigor, Thorns, Concentration. Holy Freeze can also still roll. Huh. So, they gut Cursed, making it basically useless. And then on top of that, they also are removing Conviction and a bunch of other very useful damage auras. That is interesting. Well, we'll come back to this, though. But overall, I think I kind of understand the idea. I've actually been an advocate for having to put base points in, at least to get stronger demons, or at least demons with certain abilities like maybe Cursed or Auras. But maybe these kinds of changes down here are a bit much, and I'm going to talk about why I think that's probably the case, but we'll go back to it though. Added so Miasma Bolt and Chains. It looks like they removed the casting delay, so you can just spam it. You can have a lot of them out there, but they reduce the cloud damage. This should make Chains a lot more responsive, while also not making them super OP. And Miasma Bolt, I guess, also kind of nerfing it as well. So to preventing double ticks, yeah, that kind of stuff was going on. Okay, these changes are probably fine. Remove the damage taken stat from Lethargy. Ooh. Ooh, that means it's no longer going to do what Grimoire does. It's no longer going to sunder physical immunity, or it's no longer going to have an effective, reduced enemy physical res stat. That is interesting. That combined with the curse change means it might be pretty difficult to kill physical immune monsters now without the physical sunder charm. That is interesting. Okay. Ring of Fire. Yeah, Ring of Fire early game is pretty OP, but honestly, late game is pretty much worthless. They might want to consider increasing like late game scaling on it and then reducing early game scaling. Not just nerfing it, you know. I feel like the late game could use some help on that. You know, removing casting delay so you could spam Miasma Chains. I like that they're making it more responsive, but also fixing the bugs. That is good. Flame Wave. I don't know if they had to really nerf this. I mean, it is really strong, though. I mean, maybe they could have, like, once again, did what I said for Ring of Fire. I think it's a better idea would be to reduce the early game scaling and then increase the late game scaling. But that's just me. Echoing Strike. Nerf to the synergies. Eldritch Blast now has static mana and lifesteal. Okay. And then we combine those changes with bug fixes where you can no longer bind an undead. Blood Boil's synergy actually works on Summon Tainted. Cool, that was a pretty major bug. Fixed Echoing Strike damages to be additive and not multiplicative. So auras are no longer going to add crazy amounts of damage, possibly skills not either. Not 100% sure though. We'll have to see. Fixed Echoing Strike not rolling to hit, so attack rating is going to be needed now. And it now will incur durability loss. Ooh boy. And of course they fixed the Miasma Bolt, Miasma Chains stuff. You know, this is more double ticking, infinite ticking, all kinds of crazy stuff, exponentially ticking. Wow, lots of weird damage bugs at Miasma, but we already knew those were probably things. And then yeah, we already talked about the Bind Demon thing. Okay. All right. So, and then a fix to enhanced entropy as well. So that should be this means that bonus skill level will also work, not just base points, which honestly is good. You'll be able to get more radius for Abyss and the Miasma as well. Honestly, Abyss build stonks looking good. Abyss and Miasma Chain. Maybe Miasma Chain damage will be quite a bit lower, but you could get a lot more chains out there. So it's gonna... I think an Abyss is basically unchanged, and it's a really strong ability. That's going to be good. Apocalypse is unchanged. Still going to be really good. I think that damage changes to, you know, Flame Wave and Ring of Fire mostly target early games, so still going to be really good. But with these 3 bug fixes, okay, we have Now, what I originally thought is for sure they were going to fix the attack rating bug, right? I mean, because that makes sense. Fixing the damage multiplier, yeah, that echoing strike damage multiplied in some crazy ways. That makes sense to fix too. Now, echoing strike is a weird ability. It is a cast ability, so it requires faster cast rate. There aren't really abilities in the game that require faster cast rate that require attack rating, even though it's clearly intended for it to happen. It just was bugged. And there's also no faster cast rate abilities that incur durability loss. But I guess what they want is for Echoing Strike to be an exception. It uses FCR, but it does roll chance to hit, so it's not a cast ability. It is a casted melee ability, at least in their mind. And it incurs durability loss. Now, this one's likely to make some people mad because they invested in ethereal weapons that are now going to lose durability. I don't know if they really needed to do this, but in order to be consistent, though, with the fact that it's also using attack rating, it makes sense to also fix this. But note here for Echoing Strike, we have 1, 2, 3, 4. All right, there's 4, 5, removing the damage taken stat. Now, obviously, Lethargy is still really good against bosses. It's like a super slows target or like an extra Decrepify. It's crazy. And if you use it on top of actual Decrepify or Holy Freeze, it's really strong. But yeah, that's 5 though, and then you could count the fact that you need hard points in a Bind Demon. That's 6. The cursed affix getting removed. The fact that you could still get other damage auras though, that's good, I suppose. That's whatever. 6 to 7. There are, and then maybe also this too, requiring extra points of demonic mastery, which will surely take away from your synergies or other abilities that would grant you damage, like consume, like consuming a Goatman. Holy crap, it's like 7 to 8 nerfs to that ability. Wow. It's like an instead of a triple nerf, it's like an octo nerf. An octagonal nerf to that ability. Holy moly. That is wild. And heck, even a small nerf from this, Jesus. Well, Blood Oath is kind of just a universal thing, which, let's be honest, is a little absurd how high it could get. But wow. My inclination is to think that they might have gone a bit overboard here. They might not need to do all these to nerf it. I fear that, especially without max gear now, the ability is going to be really, really weak. And really difficult to get going. Now that you need attack rating already, that's already going to, like, compromise the build. And then you need a book to get a two-handed weapon, which means you're going to have mana problems unless you use certain sigils, which is probably, or not just sigils, but hexes. You need certain hex. You need hex siphon, or you need to use. Oh man, I don't know. It's crazy. Like, there are certain things you could do, but your sustain is going to be already questioned from that. And then you need attack rating. And then you can't have an ethereal weapon. And then in order to have a two-handed weapon, there has to be a book, which means you can't use certain things like spirit that give all that mana. And then on top of that, it's like crazy damage nerfs anyway, and it's additive and not multiplicative, so that's fine. You could get rid of all those things. But now you also have problems getting cursed, and you're going to lose a lot of effective damage from the fact that you have to max Bind Demon if you want a really strong Bound Demon. And you don't have the 5% from Curse, which means you probably have to use like Reaper's Toll or the Dreadfang Legend Sword for Amp on the Mercenary. Most likely Reaper's Toll, though, if you still want Might Act 2 Mercenary. Because 5% chance, like even taking off of a Holy Freeze, which is apparently still allowed, that is going to be very challenging. It's going to be very challenging. Yeah. And so you already like aren't going to be able to get, so you're not going to be able to get the Defilers for the AoE, because you'd have to max out Demonic Mastery, and you'd have to max out Bound Demon just to get a decent demon that could probably survive with a health cap and all that other fun stuff. Yeah, I don't know. Like, I think this might be an overreaction somewhat. And here's the thing. Like, I've said this before in a previous video, but I really think that, like, Sorceress already exists, right? Energy Shield exists. Telekinesis, Static Field, Teleport. You know, Sorceress has some of the most crazy abilities that no other class can match, or even attempt to match, without, like, Jaw Ith Burr, right? And not only does she have these crazy abilities that make her stand out and super powerful from the very beginning of the game, she also has crazy damage. She has Cold Mastery, which basically means that if the monster isn't cold immune, they lose all the res, even more than Infinity can do for any other build or any other class. And if the Sorceress class exists, and it has all these crazy abilities, you know, is it really fair to say that the Warlock was really that OP even on launch? I mean, let's also think about other abilities that exist in the game. I mean, we have Dodge, Avoid, and Evade. Those exist for the Javazon, and they could practically make her invincible. Even more so than I'd say Blood Oath. Well, I don't know. Maybe Blood Oath past 80% would be even stronger than Dodge, Avoid, and Evade. But around 50%, those abilities on the Amazon are even stronger than Blood Oath. They're proposing to make it. So this is fine. That's fine. All this is fine. But it's very interesting to note here that, like, you have these other classes with other very crazy OP abilities. My only fear, though, is that the damage will be so low. I guess people will have to test it, and it'll be so hard to get that level of damage that it'll be difficult to do. You're just not going to want to do it. Most of the best weapon options now might be, like, other weapons with Deadly Strike and plus skills, like, I mean, you could have, like, you put Doom into the mix. You could put, obviously, Ariox Needle is still going to be insane. You still got, Death. You got Breath of the Dying, which is indestructible ethereal. And you could have, like, a two-handed F, Breath of the Dying. That stuff is all good. But they don't have faster cast rate, right? And on an Insight, if you want the faster cast rate, you have to use a non-Eth one now, which is, you know, it's still a pretty decent option. But yeah, now you have to use a book, though, which means you might struggle in the sustain department. So, I don't know. I think it's still going to be fine. I do. But some things I think might be a little extreme, you know. It's fine to fix these things that you call bugs, particularly if you want to make it a very unique skill. But these bug fixes alone, I would almost say, would be enough. And even this one's controversial, because now people won't be able to use the weapons that they could use. Fixing Echoing Strike not incurring durability loss on a weapon. I mean, that's a pretty extreme one. Another thing that I have to say is I have no idea why they would remove Conviction Aura from the pool. Now, I know some people are complaining, holy crap, they get free Infinity. Well, yeah, but a Paladin has even better than free Infinity, a way stronger Conviction Aura from the get-go if they want it. So it's already way better for a party. On top of that, once again, skills like Cold Mastery exist in the game, which already like crazy reduce monsters' res to your own ability. I think the fact that you would already require 15 or 20 points, which is already a huge commitment. I'd even argue you shouldn't need that many points to get that, personally. Maybe only like 10 hard points to differentiate it from a full demon build that might want 20 points. But 20 points, 15 points to get Conviction Aura, that's a lot of commitment. That's already going to reduce your damage quite a bit. And I think, considering like everything else in terms of how the builds work, I think it's really cool that there was a class that didn't need Infinity on their endgame build. I thought that was actually a pretty cool concept. But now, I mean, you're pretty much forced to have Infinity on your endgame fire build again, and there's no way around it. But I thought it was cool there was a way to circumvent that, particularly now that they want you to actually invest in it. I think that's cool. So now they're kind of getting rid of that original concept. I don't know if I like that. I think I like that they could potentially have that, and it was an option they could use. Yeah, sure, it made their fire build really strong, but fire builds without Fire Sunder and a whole bunch of other gear are already the most limited in terms of what they can farm in Hell early game. They are. I mean, there's not many areas without fire immunes that are going to be easy to farm. I mean, Cows is one, but there aren't that many other ones. I don't even know why you would bother doing this. I mean, you already need a ton of other very good gear anyway to make the Conviction Aura really powerful in the end game. It's just good it just helps with early farming. So yeah, I don't know. I feel like they're almost giving in too much to the people claiming OP a little too much. This is a little crazy overreaction, I would say. At least that specifically. Removing Conviction Aura, making the curse chance so low that it's basically ineffective. I don't think that's useful either. I personally think they could keep it the same, or maybe nerf it down to 50% to make it a little less reliable, but that's crazy. That's crazy. I don't think they need those and all the bug fixes and everything else. Another thing I kind of worry about here is if they reduce the synergy bonus from Echoing Strike synergies, it's arguable one of the synergies, the one that doesn't give the extra blades, you might not even bother going it because it's only 3%. You'd rather probably put your points into something else, which is really weird for an ability to not want to max out one of its synergies because it's that low. So yeah, I don't know. I think this might be an overreaction here. We'll have to see what the damage numbers and the performance looks like at every stage in the game when they release this, but I don't know. And for the Fire Warlock, I really hate that. I really hate the idea of removing Conviction Aura. I think that's a mistake. Everything else here I'd say is probably pretty fair. Obviously, another controversial thing is making F weapons not a thing, but I mean, it makes some of the tougher items to get even stronger, so maybe that's not too bad of a thing. I don't know. Now, they should have done this a long time ago, reintroducing bindable move directions, WASD. That's really good. Let's go over some of the other small changes here. So Colossal Ancients magic resistance increased from 50 to 75. Colossal Talic damage adjustment increase. Change the value of whirlwind damage. Increase the damage of fire twisters and volcano. Yeah, that's fine. I do think some of them are a little too weak. I think these are good changes in general. These are good. And obviously Echoing Strike made them look like a joke, but that's because it was too powerful. I mean, no one's going to deny that Echoing Strike was so absurdly powerful, but like, this is so many nerfs. So many nerfs. And let's be honest, if you wanted to be like super, super powerful, you needed really good gear. So, I don't know. But let's not go back to that again. I feel like we've talked about it enough. Let's talk about the last thing they did here, though. Terror Zones, Heralds, and Center Terms. Colossal Ancient statues can now drop from non-terrorized act bosses. Fair enough. I mean, I don't know. I mean, I guess the sand, you know, the respec sand can already drop from non-terrorized act bosses, and that's how you get it. It's just another item like the sand that now only drops from the act bosses. It makes it a little less unique, though. And it makes them maybe a little too easy to get, to the extent that those jewels won't be quite as difficult. Now those jewels will just be raining from the sky, basically. I do think time gating it is kind of rough, but at the same time, having 30-minute terror zones meant that you'd have a lot of opportunities to get these statues. Every day there'd be a lot of opportunity to get lots of these statues. I don't know. I feel like maybe making the major thing that prevents you from getting the jewel, being able to kill the Colossal Ancients, is one thing, but they're not that hard. I could argue this position from both ways. I think most people probably, like, most people in my chat were like, we definitely would rather be able to get these in more ways, maybe from non-terrorized act bosses. So I don't know. I'm not super committed. I'm not gonna die on that hill either way. I don't think there was any problem with how it was before, though. Not really. But there was a lot of complainers on this, so it is what it is, I guess. The chance to drop Worldstone shards is no longer modified by player count. Okay, fair enough. I don't think player count should have influenced that too much, so yeah. That way solo players would have more of a chance to terrorize full acts. Heralds now spawn and hunt players immediately upon killing any monster in a terror zone. The chance for a herald to hunt you is increased with each monster killed within the same terrorized zone. I'm not exactly even sure what this means. So I guess this means instead of drawing ire, there's no longer ire. Now you just kill monsters in the terror zone and immediately they spawn somewhere nearby. I don't know. I kind of like the suspense aspect of the ire and whatnot. I don't know why they would change this. I guess people are claiming... I guess the real problem is people didn't like a system where you'd have to stay in the game to terrorize the zone, but that's kind of the point of the shards too, right? So I like what Blizzard introduced, which with the Reign of the Warlock patch for the most part, and it feels like they're backtracking a lot here. And I don't know if it's just in response to people like not understanding the system, or or just not vibing with it, or just not having enough time to engage with it. But overall, I think personally I'd say it's really good the way it is. I mean, for the most part. I don't know if this is really necessary. Alright, Latent Thunder Charms can drop from any monster. Okay, I don't like this. I don't like this. So the way I see it, Thunder Charms, when they introduced them, could only drop from elites in terrorized zones, right? And then Reign of the Warlock made it to where they could only drop from heralds in the terrorized zones. That you'd have to spawn from killing elites. I think it's fine if they make it to where Magic Find could drop them like a Geed's Charm in a terrorized zone, and they keep it still a terrorized zone exclusive item, because that's part of the fun of the Thunder Charms, is they've always been something you would have to farm in the terrorized zone. Not just, better chance for better items and more experience, but also the Thunder Charms. Allowing them to drop just like a Geeds in a non-terrorized zone, I feel like that takes away from the uniqueness of the item, and I feel like it's not only going backwards from Reign of the Warlock, it's going backwards from their original inception in terror zones to begin with, in the original expansion. So I think this is a huge overcorrection. I think they should be just terror zones, just terrorized zones only. But I think it's fine if the Magic Find odds, so the odds that it drops like a Geeds, I think that's fine as long as it's restricted to terror zones. And then that's fine. And they're still pretty rare in that case, right? But they're more obtainable. I'd say that'd be fine. The increased chance to drop Elite and Thunder Charm now starts at Heralds of Dread Tier 2 instead of Tier 4. I don't know why they just don't have it start at Tier 1. This is confusing. Just have the increased odds. Just introduce a Thunder TC drop chance starting from Tier 1. Why start it at 2, 3, 4, or 5, Started it from the very first Herald. You get increased odds. And then by the time you're on Tier 4 and Tier 5, the odds are actually decent. It's like 1 out of 10 or something. 1 out of 5. 1 out of 5 to 1 out of 10. Way more common than it is now. Right now it's ridiculous. Yeah, something like 1 out of 10, like Tier 5 Herald should be dropping a Thunder Charm. That's at least my opinion. Not like 1 out of 60 like it is currently. Or, I don't know, even worse than that. Something like that. It's like between like 60 and 120 right now. Should be like 1 out of 10, 1 out of 20 at most. But I don't think the increased odds should start from Tier 2. Should just start from Tier 1. They are Heralds. Why still leave out Tier 1? There's no reason to do that. The increased chance to drop a latent Thunder Charm from Heralds is no longer heavily modified by player count. Okay, fair enough. Helping out with those solo players. But it's probably still modified by player count, just not heavily modified. I like that. Honestly, that change will make it a lot easier to fight the Heralds too, because Heralds and super high player counts are super insanely powerful and dangerous. So I guess if the increased chance to drop a latent Thunder Charm for Heralds fails to drop a latent Thunder Charm, there's an increased chance of dropping something desirable instead, like a charm or an amulet. There you have it. I feel like Heralds already have really good loot tables, but yeah, they could improve them further. I think that's already fine. I feel like they're very vague at these increased chances, though. I feel like if they make them too likely to drop, kind of like they were before, Thunder Charms won't be special anymore, and there'll also be power creep with these crazy renewed Thunder Charms as well that are too easy to obtain. Personally, I would like to see a balance there where it's like 1 out of 20, maybe 1 out of every 20 Tier 5s, maybe 1 out of every maybe 1 out of 15 Tier 5s, and then maybe 1 out of 30 like Tier 1s or Tier 2s, drops a Thunder Charm. I don't think there's anything wrong with that. Just not 1 out of a gazillion for anything below tier 4 as it is currently, and 1 out of like a 100 for tier 4 or tier 5. That's a little much, right? I mean, that's takes crazy investment for a lot of players too, right? You got to terrorize the whole game, blah 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 blah. Might not need to do that anymore. Might just need to terrorize single acts or 1 or 2 acts, and you actually have a really good odds now to do that. I mean, it might still be best to terrorize the whole game, but yeah. But it says it starts at tier 2, right? They should just have it scaling, so just start at tier 1 and the increased chance just gets higher as you go to tier 5. That's all you gotta do. You don't gotta make the same increased chance from tier 2 to tier 5. Just start at tier 1 and have it scale up. Now you might be noticing there's something missing here. They didn't say anything about modifying the stats of heralds, the damage bonuses, the HP bonuses, which are absolutely crazy. Like, I'm all for heralds being very strong and whatnot, but they are crazy, crazy bonuses. I personally think they should maybe nerf the heralds a little bit too, because unless you have like even perfect builds are getting absolutely wrecked by these things. And I just don't see that anywhere in these PTR notes whatsoever. So that's cool. And then they fixed the Western Worldstone shards dropping way more often than the other ones. Okay, that's cool and whatnot for terrorizing all the acts and whatnot. So the other shards will have more reasonable odds. All right. Well, I'd say for the most part, I didn't really see too much of a problem with their system. And even how the Sunder Charms dropped only from heralds, it was more just that they were just so hard to get, and that the increased odds didn't start from herald tier 1. That was the problem. I'd say that's what everyone in my chat was talking about too. I personally didn't see a problem with the ancient statues only dropping from terrorized act bosses, because those made it to where it was difficult to get the jewels, and you had to utilize the terror zones and the windows that they offered to farm them. I mean, I think that's fine, especially the 30-minute windows, making them pretty frequent. But if people don't agree with me there, that's fine. A lot of people definitely thought it was difficult to get them, so I kind of understand. Changing the player count not being as impactful, I think that's really good. That was way too impactful. Having Magic Find being a lot more impactful now, just being able to find them off of non-heralds, I think that's fine too. But personally, I would definitely, I hope, so keep in mind, this is PTR notes, right? This isn't for sure gonna go live season 14 or whatever. These are all proposed changes, and then, they'll post whichever ones they feel like. But usually it's just copy paste. I've noticed they don't. They'll release it in the PTR, and then they might like remove or add a couple things, which is why it's very important to talk about this now. So yeah, I mean, anyone that has opinions on this should definitely give their thoughts and whatnot. I would personally like to see some nerfs to their heralds and their minions a little bit. Don't see that here. Colossal ancient statues could go either way. I definitely don't think it's appropriate to have Sunder Charms dropped in non-terrorized areas. I mean, if that's the case, people are just going to farm Andy, because Andy has really crazy odds to drop Geed's Charm, because she has really good odds to drop charms in general, charms and jewelry, because that's just part of her loot table. And, she's permanently quest bugged, which means she doesn't drop bolts and arrows. I found like 20 Geeds from her within like 500 runs, and if that's the case, getting Sunder Charms just by farming Hell Andy is going to be a joke. I really, really don't think they should do that. They should keep it how it's always been with the Sunder Charms since the inception of Sunder Charms. Terrorized zones only. If they don't want to make it heralds only or elites or uniques only, that's fine. And then they could make it to where any Grand Charm can roll unique, and then instead of being a Geeds could potentially being a Sunder Charm. That's fine, but it should be Terror Zones only. I think that's fine. That's fine. And then obviously having heralds having the way increased drop odds. The only problem is they're really going to undermine people caring about heralds too much, except for maybe farming like really good loot and the end game. If they make it to where Hell Andy just drops a gazillion unique Grand Charms like she already would in a non-terrorized zone, that's going to undermine their herald changes big time. So we really need to keep those center charms in terror zones. Hopefully they understand that, and hopefully other people are with me on this, because that could potentially undermine their whole herald system. And they're trying to improve it, which is good. I don't understand why it's not just a exponentially increasing odds from tier 1 to tier 5, which would further cement their Stone Shard system and make it more useful, make it better. But it is what it is. We got to keep terror zones unique in a lot of ways as well. So making the Sunder Charms only drop under those conditions are very good. Now, another thing that I am a little concerned about here is that killing any monster, do they mean any unique, like any unique, super unique, or champion monster, or any monster? Like, are they making it to where just farming any monster at all could potentially spawn a herald? I don't really like that. I think there's got to be something to focusing on killing elites and champions in the area. I think they're doing this because players are complaining that unless they have like Enigma mobility, they can't really hunt these. But at the same time, you don't want to encourage people just to farm literally just random crap monsters that drop crap to begin with. in a game where elite hunting is how you get most of the loot to begin with. And you don't really need it. You don't need Enigma on any character to farm elites. Elites always spawn the closest to where you enter the zone to begin with. So I'm not sure making any monster a potential trigger is very good. Also, if that's the case, wouldn't it always just be better, like, unless elites and like have higher chances to spawn the heralds and the regular monsters have lower chances to spawn the heralds? I mean, that could work, right? I could see that working. But if they all equally have the same chance to spawn a herald, wouldn't you just farm like Flare Jungle and like halls, like just flares in general, and then just spawn as many heralds as possible? Yeah, I don't know. I'm a little skeptical on how that's gonna work. We'll have to see what happens when they release the PTR. But yeah, that's pretty much all my thoughts, though. That's basically it. I think, to summarize, possibly way too heavy on the nerfs. I think all the bug fixes are justified, but as I've said in my stream before, if they do the bug fixes, do they need to do other nerfs on top of it? I'm a little skeptical. I mean, maybe making some things a little, like, we could argue that Sigil Lethargy is too powerful too. That's true. But then do you also need to nerf Echoing Strike synergies? I don't know. I don't know if that's really needed. I mean, maybe they're just trying to align it with Mirrored Blades here. And I could see that. But then we're also talking about that on top of the fact that you can't even have a decent curse demon anymore, which is just going to hurt all the physical builds. I mean, at this point, I think playing Abyss until like ultra late game is probably going to be the play. And then Fire early game without that Conviction Aura. I mean, Fire's already a bit of a struggle to farm early game on most builds, especially compared to magic builds like Abyss. You remove the Conviction Aura, that really hurts its early game potential. And then limiting two-handed use to only books on top of that. I mean, there's just so many things. I mean, I don't know. I don't think many of these changes individually are bad, except for maybe removing the Conviction Aura and making Cursed Affix only 5% chance. Those are really, really insane, I think. I think they go a bit overboard. But the rest of the changes individually aren't so bad. It's more of like the fact that there's just so many that are going to hit the build incredibly hard. Really make those break points, those damage points, just a lot of things very difficult. That being said, I do agree that the skill was so ridiculous it did need a lot of heavy-handed nerfs, but yeah. But overall, yeah, like Echoing Strike until like endgame, stonks are probably way down now. Even like Mirrored Blade's probably going to be pretty rough until endgame, until you get the physical Sunder. Fire is still going to be good, but once again, it's probably going to be more of an endgame thing again. Because it's not as strong as Fissure is if it doesn't have the Conviction early. And that's another fire ability. That's what Druid has. It's not as strong as Fissure and Volcano with pure damage, if that's the case. Volcano also has a physical damage component. And it definitely doesn't beat Meteor Fireball Sorceress with its mobility and damage as well. So this is something that made it unique. I really don't think they should remove that. I don't think they should remove any of these. I don't know why they would. I don't think they're that strong, really. But whatever. If you're going to require all these hard points on top of that to get those, that's crazy. And then Abyss stonks, I would say, are like way up. I mean, it was already the best way to speed run the game with a Warlock. And now we have a more reliable, more understandable miasma chain. And then Abyss is unchanged, and Abyss radius scales with soft points now with enhanced entropy, so should be really good. Even for early game farming, that might be your best choice now without Conviction or on the Fire Demon. And then physical, yeah, I wouldn't use physical or fire till endgame. You're gonna need Infinity again, probably, if that's the case. And then as for the Terror Zone changes, I'm like, Sunder Terms definitely should be restricted to Terror Zones. You could have them drop from any monster, that's fine. I still think you should at least make it more likely that the Heralds spawn by killing the elite monsters, not just any monster at all having an equal chance. That's going to be problematic. It's also going to promote some really weird, degenerate strategies like farming flayers, stuff like that. I like that they removed the player count for the most part, making Colossal Ancient statues easier to acquire. I mean, that's fine, but at the same time makes them a little bit less special. And then all they really need to do with the Heralds is just make the chance a lot higher. Not too easy to get, but a lot higher, starting from Herald Tier 1. Not just some random tier Herald that, is not intuitive. And then make that one higher, and then make it able to drop anywhere in the Terror Zone. And that's all they'd have to do. Overall, though, I don't know. I got mixed feelings, as you can see. Mixed thoughts about this. I definitely don't think any of this would ruin the game, but definitely maybe scaling back some of the more unique, awesome features. Some of these changes potentially threaten the systems that they wanted to promote in the first place, like farming the Heralds to begin with. If they make, for instance, a Latent Sunder Charm drop like a Geeds from non-terrorized monsters, well, I'm just farming Hell Andy all day. I mean, because let me tell you, man, Geeds was dropping, just raining from the sky from Andy, so... yeah, that's one way to do it. But either way, let me know what you guys think, of course, in the comments below. Let me know, what you guys think about these changes and whether or not you're going to want to test them. Obviously, testing will be very interesting here. And, well, I'll see you guys the next time we get on D2R. For now, though, I'm actually going to PD2 to test their closed beta ROM, which is happening basically at the same time. So Let me know what you guys think when you guys test the D2R public test ROM. And let me know if you guys think these changes are fair or if they go a little too far. But yeah, Dark Humility over and out. Let's get it.